What's up, guys? Today I'm here in Washington, D.C., about to play with Anat Cohen and the Tentet at the Kennedy Center. And it's super exciting. It's my first time at the Kennedy Center, so I'm really looking forward to the gig tonight. Had a little bit of time this afternoon. Was thinking about doing a Q&A session, but then what I realized that I've been wanting to do for a while now is kind of revisit something from a couple of weeks ago, which is a thread from a Facebook post that I made, and I wouldn't normally think that it would have been all that interesting. It was kind of a question that I posed, and I didn't expect so many answers, but there was 219, I think, the last time I checked, responses to it, and I think it's definitely something worth creating a wider conversation around, and I'm going to try to go through some of them today, and maybe they'll end up being a part 2 of this video. And I want to start a conversation. I want to know what you guys are thinking about, because it really touches on a lot of issues that we have here as artists in 2018. So I'm not sure if all the comments are still there, but I see that it said 219 comments on there the last time I checked. So this is it. Biggest challenges we face as 21st century artists. And I said, I know what I think, but I'm curious of what our collective thoughts might be. So the first comment is from Matt McClintock. He says, in general, people my age have little appreciation for subtlety, nuance, depth, etc., at least concerning their relationship with jazz. I think that's really interesting. I think that touches on a broader subject of, just human empathy and human attention spans. And obviously, with everything moving towards faster and immediate gratification, it's definitely not a skill that we hone anymore. It's not, we're not used to having to wait for things. And jazz is a music that's best experienced. I was listening to some podcasts. That's something I've been getting into the last couple of years, and it was a podcast by Seth Godin. He was talking, and his new podcast is called Akimbo. It's really quite good. I recommend it if you're looking for a podcast recommendation. However, he was talking about how species develop in evolution, and how ones that seek out novelty, meaning individuals who seek out novelty in a population, often end up dead, right? So you can think about like rats or mice. This is the example that he uses, talking about how if they're constantly seeking new food sources, the ones who constantly seek those new reward systems through the new food or those new experiences often are the ones that will try the new rat poison or whatever. So it kind of makes sense. And the thing about jazz and as a music is that it rewards those people that have that novelty thing that they're looking for. I've always thought to myself that I enjoy hearing something brand new rather than hearing an album that I've heard a bunch of times. And yeah, there's always a time to go back to those things that I really love, but I love checking out new music, and I want to hear something fresh. And I guess it's really not evolutionarily advantageous, which makes sense. And so I think that that's part of the problem that we have with jazz, is that it's not in the popular culture. It's not something that people hear. So they don't even have the chance to appreciate it. They don't even have a chance to understand what it is. They don't have a chance to even experience what instruments sound like. So to me, it's a little bit unfair to, say to people, oh, these people don't know what this music sounds like, when they've never even had a chance to like it or not. So I think it's our job to try to explain it and try to contextualize it in a way that maybe they can connect with. So rather than saying that people can't appreciate nuance and subtlety, which may be true, maybe there's a way that we can help them to. How can we explain what we're doing? Can we make YouTube content? Can we relate our music to something broader than just music for music's sake or playing the same standards over and over again? The next comment is from a former student of mine. He said, the fact that everyone, himself included, wants everything now, and that definitely, attributes to the same thing. Having patience, having a long view is really difficult, especially as young musicians. We're trying to make a living. We've been sold a bill of goods by a college that we can go there, get a degree, and be able to work as a musician doing the thing that we went to college for. And I think sometimes we get a little bit skewed that we think that, we're going to go to college for music and then automatically just be able to make our living solely doing that. Sometimes I think we have to realize that that's not the case. There's tons of people that go to school for things and end up doing something else afterward. So trying to have that long view, try to set yourself up with patience and have that long view is going to, I think, help you to, succeed in the way that you want to as a musician or just in life in general. This is a really interesting one. Alan Caillou, he says, his biggest challenge is finding an original voice in the ocean of original voices that exist today. And wow, yeah, that's definitely a challenge. I can definitely feel where you're coming from, Alan. However, I think it's impossible for you to not have an original voice unless you're specifically trying to be an impersonator. And just like, people try to be an Elton John impersonator, a Billy Joel impersonator, or an Elvis impersonator or whatever, those people, they sound really close, but they're not the real thing. And people can always tell that it's not the real thing. And so unless you're trying to be an impersonator, and I think in jazz education and music education, it's really important to imitate first and to try to sound as close as you can to a variety of masters of this music to try to, really learn the most you can. But I think ultimately in the end, as long as your goal isn't to be a Michael Brecker copycat, you're going to sound like yourself. You might have strong influences from a variety of places, but you're not going to not be yourself. I think it's impossible to not be yourself unless you specifically set out to not be yourself by, just trying to copy somebody else. Sometimes I wish I didn't sound so much more like myself, but I think it's something that's a culmination of your experiences, and you just have to embrace it as you go. I don't think it's possible to escape that process, and I don't think it's possible to escape sounding like yourself. You're always gonna end up sounding like yourself. Javier Nero, friend of mine from Juilliard, he commented, the necessity to share our art constantly and for free in order to maintain visibility, i.e. Instagram. And originally my comment back to him, I said, is it a necessity or is it a choice to participate in the current model of where people put their attention? And I still kind of stand by that. I think you don't have to do anything. If you don't want to participate in social media, then you don't have to. But if you want to be where people are, and that everyone is looking at their phone every 5 seconds, that you have to appear there so that you can connect with those people. I don't think it's possible for you as an artist who's trying to get in front of people to not be where their attention is. And it's just where the eyeballs are. You used to need to be in Downbeat magazine. You used to need to be on television, blah, 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 blah. But now everyone's not even hardly paying attention to those things. They're paying attention to what's on their phone almost at all times. So if you're not there, you're not going to be able to connect with them. And I know that, this relates to a broader conversation about the worth of music and how people value their music or don't value their music. But social media, Instagram it's the new PR. We have to participate in it up to the point of our aspirations. So if your aspirations don't call for you to have to do it because you don't care how big your audience is, you don't care about people listening to your music, then you don't have to participate. But I think, we can look at it in two ways, that it's a chore, that we have to do it and we don't want to because we want to focus on creating our music, which is fair. Another way to look at it is that now we have unlimited tools, unlimited chances to connect with people just by putting a couple of hashtags. You never know on Instagram who might see the video of you playing some standard or see the video of you working on an exercise, and then they start a conversation which leads to a masterclass, which leads to et cetera, et cetera. So you never know. It's both required to maintain visibility, but it's also a choice to participate, and you don't have to participate in it. You have to be comfortable with the results either way. Another comment came from Nate Kimball, who's a great trombonist who lives out in Las Vegas, and he said one of his biggest challenges is maintaining our relevance in a society that has a decreasing appreciation for any music with a modicum of complexity. And I originally replied, is it our job to convince them? What do you think our role is in that? And Nate replied, I definitely think so. If we don't care enough to preserve and further the art, who will do it? As to our role, he thinks our role as leaders and educators is crucial. What we write, how we play, how we speak and act, how we choose to pass on our knowledge, our ability to humble ourselves to what we have yet to learn, our acceptance towards an incorporation of other musical genres, the attitude we put out to our peers, students, mentors, it all plays a role. However, he thinks that music education is vital above all else. It increases our chance of this art having a future, which is definitely true. Without motivated educators, jazz will wind up being a niche major at a few universities and a footnote in the music history book. It's really up to us, everyone reading this thread and everyone into the future. Later on in the thread, he brings up groups like Nowhere, Snarky Puppy, and that they've managed to find a balance between skill, complexity, and accessibility with tens of millions of views, et cetera, et cetera. It's interesting, for me to think about groups like that, because it's almost to me like a different conversation, only because jazz to me involves a lot of the things that those groups involve. But to me, I also think that, some element of swing and ride cymbal and that whole thing, the feeling of jazz and swing, like it's got to be in there somewhere. I don't feel like I'm super delineating between this is jazz or this is not jazz, but I feel like there's some element of that, cymbal drivenness to the music but obviously it's not totally true. I'm convincing myself out of my own point in that if you play just with the bass player, obviously, and trombone and bass, you're not going to have a ride cymbal. So maybe that's not the definition. I have a hard time with the definition of jazz, or what is jazz or what is not jazz. But back to Nate's point, maintaining relevance. I think, the thing that made them relevant was that they were addressing people where they were and creating music for people that they could relate to the grooves, they could relate to the sounds, which are the electronic sounds, not the acoustic sounds. I really think that that's true, and I think that their use of synthesizers and keyboards and contemporary grooves is what drew some people into the music and made them feel like they could connect. And the horns are not, the driving force of that music. The horns are like the icing on the cake, and in our music as instrumental, improvised music, often the horns are the lead role. And that's something that people are definitely not used to hearing and definitely not used to understanding how that might sound or how that could work even. But I do think that if you're making honest art, if you're making your best music and putting it out there as best as you can, I do think that you'll wind up connecting with people. I don't think you're going to end up not doing so. You'll be able to connect with the people that are interested in the kind of music you want to make, and I think that more people need a good introduction to jazz. I think a lot of people hear bad, quote-unquote, jazz music as wallpaper, and they're never paying attention to it. But to hear and experience great music, I think that they'll actually enjoy it more than they think if they see the right stuff, and it's in the right context, and they're open, and they, there's a whole lot of things that go into making a great experience of a concert, and a whole lot of things that go into the context of hearing and appreciating music versus thinking, not really digging it. It could have nothing to do with the music. It could have been that the waiter they had sucked, or could have they had a long day and they went and heard something amazing and it really lit up their world. There could be those outside factors that have nothing to do with the music. Wow, so there's so much more in here that I really want to dig into, and I just realized that it's 5 minutes until lobby call and I have to run. But I'm going to pick this up for a part 2 very soon. But this, I want to hear what you guys are thinking about. I want to hear what you guys think about some of the points that we've talked about so far in this video. There's so much more to go through here, but please let me know what you guys are thinking about, how you think about, these things. I want to hear, let's continue the conversation. What are the biggest challenges that you face as a 21st century artist? And what are some of the solutions that you find to the things that we talked about so far? All right, I'm off to the Kennedy Center. There will be a part 2. I'll see you guys back here really soon. Thanks for watching.